Welcome to the March 2024 block of the month, and this month we're going to start making the blocks. And here I have all the pieces already cut and laid out for block 1. So the first thing I'm going to do is make some half square triangles, and I am going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on these white pieces. Okay. And we're going to be making 2 at a time, so they're a little bit oversized, and then we'll trim them down. And one more line. Okay. And then we're going to match them up with this pink dot fabric, right sides together, and then we're just going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of that line. Okay, lined up. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead and trim them apart right on that line. Okay, and then we're going to press those to the pink fabric. And I'm just going to set that seam. Then we're going to trim them down. And so a couple different ways you can do it is taking a size of the ruler that we know we're trimming to, and then I'm just placing the diagonal line on the ruler right along that seam, and then I know my corners are going to have that seam exactly in the center, and then I'm going to trim all 4 sides. And I do like to trim all 4 sides because it keeps everything exactly squared to the ruler, and then it's trimming off the dog ears at the same time. So that's one method. And it's hardly trimming anything off. There's like less than 1/8 inch on those. So we're just basically kind of squaring it up. So another ruler that I have for half square triangles that I like is a block lock ruler. And you can just, this has a groove in it where you place that right along the seam. And then you just trim 2 sides and then the other 2 sides. So, and then there's that. So whichever method works best for you, but we are going to trim them all down to the correct size. Okay, I'm back at my design board here and my sewing machine, and now I am going to go ahead and lay out the blocks how they need to be sewn, and I'm just going to create some piles here. So we're going to be making some 4 patches like this. Okay, we're going to sew those 4 into a 4 patch, and then these pieces here, I know they have to get sewn together, and then our middle piece will create that middle row. And so basically we're then just going to build it like a 9 patch. So to start with, let's go ahead and make these little units here. Okay, and I've got one kind of done. So I'm going to press this one to the red side. And then this one I'm going to finger press to the white side. And then I'm going to line them back up like they would go on the block. And I'm just going to go ahead and finish sewing that 4 patch together. And then I'll do a really good press when I get them all sewn. Okay, everything's nicely pressed, so I'm going to go ahead and lay it out on the design board on exactly how it's going to be pieced together. And just double check that everything looks good. Okay, and then we're just going to sew it together in rows and then put it together like a 9 patch. So on the pressing on these, I just pressed it to the green piece. On this piece, I just pressed this piece to the solid, and same here, so those nested. And then when I pressed the seam, I just picked a side and pressed it too. Now you could press that open if you wanted to, but that's how I did the pressing. And so let's go ahead and sew these together. Okay, block 1 is all completed, looks good, and now we're ready to start block number 2. Okay, we're ready for block 2 for this month, and we're going to start out making some half square triangles. So I have drawn a diagonal line already on those, and then we're going to do some corner units to like snowball some of these. So we have to draw a few lines there. So I'm going to finish this last one, and I'm just drawing right from corner to corner. And I'm just using a Frixion pen, and that comes off with heat, but it's also on the wrong side of your quilt, so to me that's fine. Okay, so we're going to start with the half square triangles first, and we'll just line those up right sides together, and we're going to stitch on both sides of that line. Okay, those are done, so I'm just gonna set those aside for a bit and move on to this unit. And for this, we're just going to snowball 2 opposite corners. So I have a little red square and we'll just line that up right in the corner. And for this, we're stitching right on that drawn line. And we're doing the opposite corners, so then I'll come back and put one in the opposite corner, and then we're going to sew on that line as well. Okay, so I have all those stitched, and now I'm going to go trim and press, and we'll see what we have. Okay, now let's trim everything. And on the half square triangles, we're just going to cut right on that line. And then we'll press those, and then we'll have to trim them down because, again, they're just oversized a little bit, and that helps us get them the exact size we need them to be. So if we make them a little bit bigger and trim them down, we're having more control over that seam being right in the corner, that kind of thing. So, okay, and then we're going to trim these, and I'm just going to go about 1/4 inch away and just trim off that piece. And then we'll press those, and then those will be done. Okay, so that we'll just toss. Okay, and then we'll do our pressing. And so I'm just like to set the seam, and I'm going to press with the red on top for these half square triangles, so that when I flip it back, I'm pressing it to that red fabric. So I kind of just, with my fingers, get it as flat as I can, pulled apart, and then just press the iron on it. And then while they're sitting there, I'll just put a clapper. Okay, we'll put a clapper on those and let those sit for a little bit so they can cool. And we'll go ahead and press these, and I'm just going to set my seam. And that also is making that Frixion pin disappear. Okay, and then here I'm just going to press to the red. Okay, those look good. So I'm gonna pop those up there out of the way a little bit, put that on there and let them sit. And then we can trim these up. And I'm gonna go ahead and just use this block lock ruler. And then we're just trimming off just a little bit, but get that lined up. And I'm trimming 2 sides at a time. We're just taking off a little tiny bit, but that's the size we need our unit to be. Okay, we have everything trimmed up and pressed, and now we're gonna assemble these little quadrants. And so there's 4 different quadrants, and we're gonna make those first. And so we're gonna basically piece these 2 units together, and then that will go on there. And then these units get pieced together, and then they will get added to the block. So that's how we're going to create our little quadrant. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Okay, I'm finger pressing these towards the solid white rectangle just because there's no seams on this piece. But before I add them to the block, I'm going to go ahead and just give them a little press because I do want those to be nice and flat when I assemble that. Okay, I've pressed them, and let's go ahead and we're going to add this smaller 2-piece unit right to our piece here. Okay, they all look good, and they're kind of feeling like they want to press towards the larger pink and red piece. So I'm just gonna let that go that way. And it's not, when it's sewn with this section, there's not a seam right here or anything that it's meeting, so it doesn't really matter which way it goes, just where it's going to be laying the flattest. So I'm going to press that, and then we're going to add that side on. Okay, that's been pressed, and now we're just going to add this piece on the side. Now we're ready to assemble our block, so I'm just going to lay it out how it is to be sewn together and make sure I have everything oriented correctly. Okay. Okay, so again, we're just going to sew it together like a 9 patch. I'll sew this row, this row, this row, and then join them together. So let's do that now. last piece to add on. Okay, and there's our finished block. I'm going to give it a good press and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, there's our finished block, and so that completes March. Thanks for watching.